Hello Whisky Geeks, I hope you guys are ready to get your geek on, because I certainly am. Now, a little while ago I received an interesting email, and that interesting email resulted in this interesting package turning up on my doorstep. Now typically I would be fairly cautious about accepting a sample from any whisky business, anyone with a vested interest in receiving positive feedback. Now there's two main reasons for this. Firstly, there's nothing to say that that sample hasn't been cherry picked. It's not a particular recipe, vatting batch, something that makes it not representative of the whisky that a consumer would buy off the shelves. Now in this case, that definitely isn't true, it can't be. Secondly, there's almost an unspoken agreement, an obligation to give positive feedback. You know, I've received something and in return I will say nice things about you. Again, in this circumstance, it's not really true. Now the gent who sent me this is the owner of Cheaper by the Dram. This is a small outfit who seek to find these bucket list whiskies, the hard to find, the rare and expensive bottles, break them down into miniatures and then sell them at a fraction of the cost, helping to combat that fear of missing out. Or as they put it, a focus on fine and rare whiskies. As such, his interest is in the service he's providing and not this specific sample of whiskey. So I agreed to do this on two caveats. The first one was that I would be 100% honest. My opinion, good or bad, would be honest. And the second one was I would disclose that this is a freebie. It's been given to me for free. So now that all that waffle is out of the way, let's take a look at what we've actually been sent. Quick little nod to the packaging here. Not only is it safe and secure, but it's also a little bit fancy, a little bit premium, so it's befitting of the whisky inside. You get this nice little presentation business card with all the details of the whisky, of the sample, the bottle that it's come from, and of course you get the sample itself. Now this has come with a little seal on it. It looks like it's been vacuum sealed. I believe the labelling, there's weird legislation, which is why it comes with this rather than on there, but it looks quite nice. So this sample is from Glen Garioch, a Highland distillery. It's a single malt. This is a 21-year-old, so it's been aged in casks for 21 years old, but then it's actually a 1965 vintage. So this particular bottling has had a couple of extra decades sat to meld together. That's probably why it's, you know, scarce, hard to find, rare, and it's bottled at 43%. So I have intentionally not done any particular research on this bottle because I wanted to just let it present itself to me, see what I thought of it, and then maybe I'll do some research and see what I missed. Give that, ooh, it smells good. I'll give that a little bit of time in the glass before I actually get stuck in. So taking a quick look at this colour here, it's about a shade 3 or champagne. I have no idea if that's natural coloured, but it's a nice crisp clear gold, so you'd expect it's hopefully natural. There's also some decent legs forming on the side of the glass. So this nose is presenting wonderfully rich. It's unctuous, soft, that vinous green grape. Loads of the linseed oil, waxy and rich butteriness. There's no kind of harsh edges, it's all very integrated. And no off notes that you can find either, really. Behind that you get some really nice old woods and a herbal note. It's kind of cloves and a sprig of rosemary with a hint of pepper in there as well. But behind that you're getting a touch of citrus and some nice sweetnesses kind of rolling in, honeys and orchard fruits. It's interesting, it's very reminiscent to me of standing in the Deanston maturation warehouse, which is an old stone building, rather than being, you know, a damp dunnage warehouse. It's rich with this cool, evaporated spirit. And again, Deanston is a similar, you know, waxy, some sweetness, some richness, and that vinous element. It's bringing me back there, which is odd. It's a little bit drying, and there is such a subtle astringency, a subtle prickle in there, but you really have to go looking for it. So now onto the palate. Wow, that is not at all what I was expecting, but it's also something that I've never experienced in any other whiskey before. So I've had one Glen Garioch before, a long time ago, a couple of years ago, and it was very different to what the nose was presenting to me here. But that palate is a little more akin to how I remember the Glen Garioch being, but way more refined and interesting. So the palate and the finish are like weirdly integrated. It's hard to make a distinction because of the way that it follows through. It's a very textural experience. I think this is what makes it unique to what I've tasted before. It's something which I've found before in those little like aroma kits that you can get, distillers aroma kits, and it's always labelled as ethereal, something kind of spirity, fainty, not quite solventy. It's lacking that harshness, almost perfumey, but it's coming through as a flavour rather than an aroma. So initially it starts very soft, and it's almost like it's lacking in flavour. The flavour is very thin at the beginning, which draws your attention to the textural element, this oiliness. And the oiliness starts to develop a prickle, but as it does develop that prickle, this green apple and the pepper, which gives way to a capsicum heat. It's very textural, it's very mouthfeel. That capsicum heat flushes through into the finish. Everything begins to kind of evaporate, and it's retronasal again, and you start to get this wave of citrus and a kind of interesting, again, those herbs, cloves, and the pepper, old woods, a bit musty, and it's very long finish. The flavour is still, you know, it's sitting on the palate and it's still making me salivate now. Really, really interesting whiskey. A unique experience for sure. Now, it's totally not something that would be for everyone. I think you can probably tell I'm a little excited about it because it's so interesting, it's unique, it's new. But if this was a standard bottling for any distillery, I'm not sure that people would get that excited about it. It's specifically for whiskey enthusiasts, I think, that would find this really interesting and enjoy sitting with a dram of this. And I guess that's kind of the point. You get to, without the initial outlay of cash, you get to try these whiskies, have that experience and be content knowing what that whiskey was. You don't feel like you've missed out. I'm very fortunate to have got to try this. Now, rating it is largely redundant. I wouldn't have guessed that it was 21 years old. That's not a slight on the whiskey at all, but there's a few characteristics to it that present in a way that it resembles youth to me, in that it's got a lot of spirit characteristics. The wood, the cask influence seems to be very restrained, but then again it's balanced by all of these intricacies, all of these oddities that bring the experience together, and that's probably, you know, dependent on the age, and I imagine to do with the old bottle effect, to do with it having sat for a while. So I just went and did some quick searches to try and find out how much a full bottle of this would cost, and it's safe to say I won't be buying one. The cheapest I could find was just over £1,200, so I am very, very fortunate to have got to try this. Thank you for sharing it with me. But whilst I was there, I also took a look at the other offerings from Cheaper by the Dram. They've just added a few more bottles to their inventory, and I compared their prices against the cost of buying a bottle. You know, I didn't spend hours searching, but I could find some of the bottles, and I was very, very pleased to see that they aren't price gouging. More often than not, the cost of buying a bottle and splitting it down to this size is actually more expensive than they're offering it. So they must be doing a good job of the sourcing side of things as well to make that competitive. it's a great way of combating this fear of missing out. If you suffer from that, if you see these bottles, there's a few on my list that I'd really love to get my hand on, get to try and see what all the fuss is about. Take a look at these guys, check out, see what they've got, and it could be right up your alley. So thanks for watching and sharing this interesting whiskey moment with me. It's been great fun to explore. If you've enjoyed this video, please chuck a like and a comment below and consider subscribing for more whiskey content. Cheers.